Welcome to the Make Your Brain Happy podcast, hosted by Veronique Cardone, MS, the podcast where you'll learn how to live your life to its fullest potential. This is for anyone who's interested in the science of the brain or wants to seize the power of positive thinking, enhanced mental performance, and a healthy lifestyle.
Hi, this is Veronique with my podcast, Make Your Brain Happy. We need it more than ever. And today, my guest is Nancy Novack. Welcome, Nancy, on my podcast.
Thank
We
you.
have a lot in common. We will share it later, but I'm very excited that you are with me today. Nancy Novack is a clinical psychologist and the founder and executive director of Nancy's List, a nonprofit foundation serving the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual needs of persons living with cancer and those who love and care for them. It's a whole family, a whole village around cancer patients. And Nancy founded Nancy's List after recovery from a stage 4 ovarian cancer. Stage 4. I mean, you are a miracle, Nancy. And the mission of Nancy's List is to create space for survivors and healing professionals to share resources that will complement cancer treatments and mitigate the stress that the patients are encountering, but also deepen and accelerate the healing process. These resources include, I'm very impressed, a community of over 19,000 subscribers, 600 clinicians and holistic practitioners, and a terrific library of information about financial assistance. We're going to talk about this later and more. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pretty impressive introduction. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. And I want to say that one of the reasons we got in touch is, well, through LinkedIn, to tell you the truth, but also we are both ovarian cancer survivors. Only I was very early stage and I was very fortunate, but yours is extremely impressive. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what was your life before you even had and founded Nancy's List?
Okay, well, I knew nothing about cancer, I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
And as I tell the story, it's like I was so naive and happily naive about what this is all about. In fact, when they diagnosed me and they said, and I had thought I was having appendicitis attack. So, because I didn't know, I had a pain in the right side and it didn't go away. And so I ended up at the interist. And so immediately I got a CAT scan. I didn't even know what a CAT scan was. And this was 16 years ago.
Wow.
And so I waited and waited and waited. And she called me back in and said, okay, you want the good news, the bad news? I said, the good news. And she said, you don't have appendicitis. And I said, oh, yippee, terrific. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Bye. And she said, no, you want the bad news? I said, no. She said, you have stage 4 ovarian. It's all in your liver. Your liver is twice the size it's supposed to be. It's like a little watermelon.
Oh my God.
And your right ovary is the size of a grapefruit. Now, I don't know if you all are aware of this, but they often talk about fruit when they talk about cancer.
Yes, I was an eggplant. My tumor was, they used an eggplant analogy. Yeah.
So it's hilarious. It's hilarious. But at the same point, I said, oh, well, thank God it's not appendicitis. What's stage 5? So that shows you where I was. And immediately they're looking for a surgery room because the general MO for ovarian is a thing called debulking, which is like a hysterectomy times 10. You know, and it's a funny story, so I'm going to share it. So I'm a psychologist and I work a lot with family systems. And so I had clients that I just couldn't have that afternoon because I was being sent down to Stanford. And I called this man, and he was a cancer researcher, and in the same building where I was where I had just been diagnosed. And he said, and without going into all the details of it, he said, don't move, don't let them cut you up, don't do anything. So he connected with his buddy, who was the head of oncology at Stanford, and sent me down there. And walking into Stanford's Cancer Center and seeing it up there on the marquee, it was just like, oh my God, I can't breathe. I had no idea. But my life had just changed forevermore. And it's a teaching hospital. So everybody's poking and probing you. Everybody in the Western world is poking and probing you, and it's like, oh my God, is this ever going to stop? So that evening I was in my room and all my friends and family had gathered from San Francisco and Southern California. And we're all sort of like, what's going on here? And this man walks in the room and he looks like Santa Claus. And after an afternoon of been poked and probed, I was a little off the charts. And I said, and who might you be? Just assuming. And he said, I'm your doctor. And that was the beginning of the most incredible relationship I think I've ever known. And he said the surgeons were sitting around, they were sharpening their scalpels, ready to go for me. And he said, there's no time for that. She's very sick. We're starting chemo right now. And it was like, really? And that's sick, And then because I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. And then he said, to me privately with my family, and he said, you have a pretty rough diagnosis and a pretty challenging prognosis, but I think I can help you and I am with you. And those 4 words, when I say them, I just sort of have this extraordinary response to that. It was like, oh, okay, here's this person, one who was so committed to my healing throughout the process, but also who just got it, mm-hmm. and was with me and established right then and that very second a relationship of trust that was extraordinary. And then he said something else that night. There were a lot of things he said, but that night he said, when all your family and friends go home and you're left with what happened to me today and you're freaking out, I want you to call me. Here's my home phone number. And that was pretty special. And you know what? At 2:30, I called him. And he was so generous and so gracious and so committed to getting me well. And it was just, okay, sign me up. This man, I'm trusting with my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And we started, and I did a lot of aggressive treatment. We never did a debulking. And he said, as long as your body can tolerate this, we're going for really aggressive. And we did. And for 2 years, I did that. And at the end, I had a laparoscopy that took my ovaries and my tubes. Mm-hmm. And I've never had a recurrence.
That is a miracle. That is an absolute miracle.
Yeah.
Because the rate of survival, especially at stage 4 in ovarian cancer, is almost like 0. It's very and it was a long time ago, so they did not even have the treatments they have now. But
we did a very traditional treatment.
Yeah.
When Stanford was pretty serious about, we need to track you so closely, so we don't want you going off and doing acupuncture, and we don't want you. Everybody said, "Oh, they're so conservative." I just bought it. Like, if they want to track me that carefully, I'm with them. I can handle it. It wasn't like I had the easiest treatment. It was tough. My white cell count and this and that and the other thing. But I did it, and I'm so grateful. I'm just so
Yes, you are
grateful.
here alive. And we are in 2020.
Yeah.
You had the chance to live through 2020, this famous 2020 year. Now, as a psychologist, what are the tools you used to deal with this situation?
It wasn't
you
bad
use in
news,
practice. I hate the word tools, but resilience, courage, strengths. What
I think I thought about that. It was a great question when you've asked me that, because one of the things that I know is that emotional healing is critical. It's not just your physical body that you're taking care of. It's a lot cancer's trauma. So you're bouncing around with all these emotional responses which feel totally out of control. At one time you're imploding with emotions, and 5 seconds later you're numb, and I knew that myself, I had to understand that. I had to understand trauma, which, I certainly dealt with in my practice. I had to, okay, I want to just give one more brag to my oncologist. Like he said, if you're not on antidepressants, get on them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're on them, double them.
Okay.
And find yourself a psychologist, preferably someone who's gone through cancer, because you're going to need all the emotional support you can muster. And I thought that was, and I still say that to every cancer patient, please get some help for your soul.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was really important. I think trust, which, was a very big issue in being a psychologist. Trust is so critical to healing. And it was like, he offered me that. He offered me that critical relationship. So many people have come to me that in my work that don't like their doctors. They don't feel they connect with their doctors. They know they're super smart, but they don't like them.
Yes.
And I always go find another doctor. There are plenty of good, intelligent, brilliant doctors out there, and some of them actually have a heart. So I'll help you find that person. But it's so important that there's that trust, because I knew this from so many people. They didn't even tell their doctors half the things. They didn't follow the directions. They didn't.
You have to tell them everything.
And they don't. They just simply.
Yeah.
They've got that world, and then they've got their own private world, and they do all kinds of treatments that really are sort of, I don't know, but maybe not in their best interest. And, but they never tell their doctors. So the doctors really don't have the opportunity to track them as well as they can and see if their treatment plan is working. Yeah. So I was so blessed on that. And
me too. I have to tell you, Nancy, that my doctor was a gynecologist. He was a surgeon, and he had also been trained in oncology. So he had a triple certification. He's retired now, but I completely trusted him. I felt relief when I met him, and he took care of myself. And what have you learned about yourself during this?
Oh, I learned so many things. I learned a lot about gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
I learned about really expressing my gratitude and being grateful for the support I got from my Nancy's A team and from so many people and the angels in our midst and the infusion workers. I mean, I really lived in that place. And I think I also lived in the place, and I was beautifully guided by Rachel Riemann, who I want to just brag about a little too. She wrote Kitchen Table Wisdom and My Grandfather's Blessings, and she was my mentor through my whole process. And she taught me a lot about defining my relationship to cancer. And that was important, and that's what I tried to pass on to other people too. Like, your relationship is so uniquely you. For me, it wasn't appropriate to say I was fighting my cancer. It was important for me to figure out what I could control and what I couldn't control, and what I had to give to somebody else to control. But fighting, that language seemed adversarial. Language to me
was aggressive.
Yeah, like you're fighting your body, and it just didn't make sense to me. And it was more like, for me, it was learning to live with my cancer and thinking about that concept and what that meant. But I think
did you see cancer as your enemy? An enemy you had to live with?
It was a challenge. It was a challenge, but it was also an opportunity. It was an opportunity to learn more about myself. It was an opportunity to live with grace, to live with, I thought that was phone was off. I'm sorry. It's supposed to be. To deal with this, not only intelligently, but with compassion for myself, respect for myself, honoring my body, instead of rejecting my body because it was sick. I think one of the things, and the biggest thing I'd love to say in response to that question, was the will to live. And in my therapy practice, it was, do you have the will to change old patterns that don't work? But in this one, it was all about the will to live. And I think that's critical. I think that is a whole other discussion we can have probably for hours.
What was your will to live? Because I know what made me fight when it happened to me. What was yours? What were your?
I wanted to see my children and my grandchildren grow up. That was like that was the big one. I just couldn't imagine not having that. And sometimes people don't have that. Some people really don't. And all my work with cancer patients now has been, is it my job to encourage the will to live? Or are we born with the will to live? Where does that come from? Where do we get courage from? I think we know about that. It's like, how do you encourage courage to come into the...
Do you know how to encourage courage?
You know what? That was such a new concept to me. I mean, I remember getting an award in California, a courage award from the local newspaper. And it was like, what are you giving me a courage award? Like, what does that have to do with my healing? But it is courage, and it is being brave, and it is showing up, and it's taking, it's just finding the authentic self inside and saying, okay, if I want to live to see my grandbabies or watch my puppy dog get older, I got to do something. I can't just wait for someone else to heal me. I've got to do my own
It's
work.
interesting because of course, my will to live was about, like you, my children, and they were younger, and I felt I had so much to give them for the future. But it was also a big curiosity and appetite for, I did not want to miss all the new adventures and the new experiences I would have in the future. I felt like I'm 42. I want to live until I'm 100. I'm gonna miss all those experiences, and but at the same time, because the prognosis was very bleak at the beginning, I had also a Zen attitude, like, well, if my time has come, my time has come, but I want to just live my life to the fullest.
And I think we all should be doing that, whether we have cancer or not, because we don't know when our time has come. And I think in light of that, I mean, it's like my sister always said, you make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah, it's true. It is always the last drop of energy you can find. You can always squeeze more.
Yeah, right. That's good. And it's also, just like, it didn't feel like it was my time. I felt like I had a purpose I may not have been aware of. I think I know more about what my purpose is now, but it was like, I just didn't feel like this was, I know my family and friends were thinking I was dying because Ovarian has a really bad reputation.
Yeah.
The silent killer, whatever they call us, but I take great pride in defying medical statistics. I just don't buy that. In fact, I have when doctors tell my patients, go home, get your papers in order, I scream out loud because wait a minute, miracles do happen.
Yeah.
And we do not give in to that kind of thinking, we just can't. Some people don't have that will to live. People don't have a child that they want to watch grow up,
Or something to look forward to, right? A vision, a mission, a passion.
Right. It has to be more than a vacation.
Yes. Well, so what strengths did you build? Like, what are the top strengths you feel you built during?
I think I have a much deeper sense of gratitude.
Yes.
And a much respect and admiration for the generosity of strangers. That's what I call it. These people who didn't even know me, who were so embraced me, who wanted me to get as well as I wanted to get well. I'm just deeply moving to me to meet these people along the path. And
but that's about appreciation. I'm talking about your strengths.
I think the strength is maybe it's courage, maybe it's resilience, maybe it's that I'm willing to have this conversation right now with you and pass on hope.
Yes.
You know, I think I bring to this table some hope, because this is a story that's pretty much of a miracle. But I'm not the only one. There are miracles out there, and we can have them. And, you know, this was 16 years ago. There's more possibility. I think I can guide people in a better way, having experienced this trauma.
That was my next question, in fact. What is your experience bringing you in your work as the founder of Nancy's List to help somebody like who's just been diagnosed, and maybe the prognosis is extremely bleak, and we are going, we're going through the denial, the acceptance, the this and the that.
Right.
What are you bringing? I know you're bringing a lot, but I want to hear it.
Well, I think it's not universal. You know, I think what I do know how to do is generously listen.
Okay,
and
listen.
I think that's a great word, you know.
Yes.
And some people, you know, when I listen to find out what they need, and sometimes they need help with finances, or they need help with how to frame the questions for their next doctor meeting. Some people need help with their couple dynamics. But I often, and I think it does matter in how I can only speak for that. I honor where they are. I honor where they are. If this person who came yesterday doesn't want to do a treatment, doesn't want to do anything, wants to commit suicide, it's so painful to me to hear her talk like this, because she's so alive in so many other ways, but she doesn't want to do this. She doesn't want to go bald. That was the first line. Yeah. I have to honor that. I have to be respectful if that's her decision. And if it's her decision, I at least let's listen and find out more about what you have and what the treatment is. And then we can come to that conclusion. Yeah. But I think it's really important to be present and to go into that person's shoes and into their spiritual being and tap into it if you can. And if they don't have it, I can't tell them they're right or wrong. I don't think so. But I can listen, and they can tell me the story if they want to. Sometimes nobody does. But, you know, if they want to tell a story, if they want to do that, my biggest message to them is that what the doctor said to me is, I'm with you. And that is so critically important to so many of these women and men. That they're not alone, because I think one of the biggest determinants of being afflicted with cancer is you feel so alone.
So, Nancy, my next question, and I like the fact that you are smiling and laughing, is how, a lot of people, and I know in my family, we have some, including me at one point, are pessimistic, or, they have such a negative or hopeless view of the future. How to be or to become an optimist?
Okay. There's always hope. I think that's the thing that I was trying to think. There's always a possibility. I mean, you can say, okay, if you can hold a possibility, let's try it. Let's see what happens if you hold the possibility. I remember you might like this. I remember in psych school, the thing of the as if, live as if. What would it be like if you lived as if you were an optimist? How would it be different on this issue or that issue? When someone, and then whoever the teacher was at the time, sometimes it works. Sometimes they start thinking, well, what if I thought about this a different way? Like my sister would say, oh my God, the statistics for you are terrible. You're not going to make it. I'm going to be left, blah, blah, blah. Went on and on and on. I said, hey, wait a minute. I'm being treated at Stanford. I have a great support team. I have you, and this my sister who's, who's going to walk the walk with me. Don't go there, because that's, what if we tried this different way of looking at it? And it's not easy. I mean, some people really can't see possibilities. And I think that's such a big word in the way we get mentally, emotionally healthy, is there is always hope. I'm a great person to be out there doing this stuff because I didn't have a very positive prognosis, it really
Yes.
was true. And it's like, I didn't realize that was such a big deal because I didn't know anything, but I do now. And miracles happen, and we just don't control everything. And what we can control and what we can't control, that's important. But we can control, and it may take a lot of work, it may take yoga, it may take meditation, it may take all kinds of interventions to open your heart to the possibility that things might work out. You might even do well, you might do really well. And I'm here to hold your hand and your heart while you do it. And let's go find out.
So once you got this miracle handed to you that you survived and you are thriving now, you decided to found Nancy's List. What is Nancy's List?
Well, there's a background to founding Nancy's List.
Yeah.
I sort of realized, I'm a psychologist. I love to talk, right? So here I am. I'm spending a good deal of my time in the infusion room and started asking people questions about what they were going through and how it was. And what was so astounding to me was more than their fear of living and dying, was their fear of not having money. They didn't have money for medications. They didn't have money for food on the table. They had to make choices. And some of their choices were the food went on the table. They didn't take their meds, but of course they didn't tell their doctor they didn't take their meds. They were worried about bankruptcy. They were worried about they didn't have enough insurance. And this was like so big. And I couldn't accept it. And one man, the big moment was this person told me he was considering committing suicide because he thought it was a financial burden to his family. And this was unacceptable to me in this country. It was just crazy making. And I just sat there and said, if I get through this thing, I vow to make a difference. I vow to help find the money because I know there's money. I just got to go find it, and I got to make people aware where it is. And that's my mission. And my mission statement is no one will ever go through cancer alone. But I knew that stress is the worst thing in the world for us with cancer. And financial stress is just overwhelming. So Nancy's List originally was just going to be about finding money. And I got obsessed with it, to be honest, and just found all these foundations and corporations and where the money was to have a free cleaning woman come to your house and where you could send your kids to camp for free, or kids who had cancer, or kids who had parents who had cancer, or where retreats were for everything in the world, from quality of life stuff, but just general living expenses, and where you could get your medications for free, all these things. And I was struck that nobody knew all this stuff. Nobody knew it. And social workers were calling me, and nurse practitioners were calling me and asking me, well, what can I do for this patient? And I went, oh, I know how, and it was just like, I got to be the queen of this. So it was just like,
yeah.
And then, of course, things took off in a different way, which often happens. And I did a community call to action in Marin County, where I lived, to get all of us to adopt cancer families that were living there. So and we raised money for these families, and teenage kids adopted families and brought them food and hung out with them and tutored their kids. It was a huge community effort, and it was great. And then what happened is that these two kids came to see me in my practice one whose mother had died from cancer, whose father had died from cancer, and her mother was going through her second round of breast cancer. And she had been adopted from Mexico, and she worried that if her mother died, would she be sent back to Mexico as an orphan? The heart goes.
So sorry. Yeah.
And then this little boy the next day who came in, he's 12 years old, saying his mom was so sick with cancer and his father was drinking like a fish, and could I please help him help make his daddy stop drinking because he was afraid he'd lose both of them. And I just knew I had to do something. So we started Nancy's Club, which was for kids who had cancer and for their families as well, and kids who loved somebody who had cancer. And it was an adventure camp. And every weekend, the kids were offered a fabulous adventure. So they had something to look forward to. Most of the time we went sailing because they loved to sail. But we go to concerts, we go to sporting events, we do something every weekend. And these kids just got to play and be kids. And they loved it. They loved it. They all became support teams for each other. They all went to summer camps together. It was great. And then I moved from California to Austin. I couldn't practice.
I was going to say, yes. How did this grow? How did you organize the organization?
Well, falling in love sometimes gets in the way of things, right? So I fell in love with a Texas guy. And it was like my 10-year anniversary from the date of my, I wasn't going to talk about this, the 10-year anniversary of the date of my diagnosis. And I thought, I am telling everybody on the planet, follow your bliss, follow your heart, all those kind of things. If I were really true to that, I'd go hang out with this guy in Texas, And so I did. And in fact, 4 years ago, we got married in this ripe old age. And that was pretty fabulous. And it was the right thing to do. It's very hard for me to live in California, from my friends of many, many, many years. But I couldn't practice here. If I wanted to, I had to start all over with supervision and testing and all kinds of things I'd never do. So I wrote a book. And I decided that one of the things that had been so overwhelming to me was when I was newly diagnosed and didn't know anything and needed all the support in the world and didn't know where to go. I didn't know anybody with cancer. So I wrote a book with 40 other authors, co-authored with them, about just love letters to cancer patients. It's called I Am With You, from what my doctor said. And love letters to cancer patients of...
Where can we get that book?
Where can you get it? You just go to my website and it's all on there.
It's free? And it's free?
I wish it were free, but I have to pay for it.
I'm just asking.
But, if I could get some more hospitals, some hospitals put that in, if I could figure out a way to get that happening more, that they give to their newly diagnosed patients. One hospital recently ordered 2,000 copies for their breast cancer patients.
So what's in the book exactly? What's in that book?
There's stories from these are not stories so much. It's almost like, this is how to get through the night. These are the things these people are trying to speak. They speak directly to new patients, and it doesn't have to be a new patient, but it's words of hope, words of inspiration. There's some very wonderful, wonderful, courageous stories of how people got through it.
But in fact, you're giving, in a way, practical advice through real stories. So it's not just telling you to do.
Oh, these are all people who are survivors.
No, but this is very smart.
Yeah, my son's in there, by the way, a couple of caregiver people, but people who, it's a very exciting, it's just a right-on book that, friends give it to friends when they get diagnosed. Group leaders and support communities give it to all the people in their support groups. It's a wonderful thing. So that was my first thing when I came down here, was to put this together. And now I've gone back really to looking at the financial end, because it's becoming more and more of a critical issue for so many people. And COVID has made it more difficult.
I was going to ask you, how has COVID changed everything now? There's not
COVID has changed everything, and not good. These people's immune systems are basically compromised in so many ways, but the emotional part of it is they're alone. Nobody can even go into the doctor appointment with them. The biggest fear to me is I don't want anyone to go through cancer alone. And they're definitely doing that. And I put together, I got really ambitious on this one, to find all the foundations and all the corporations and all the other things that were giving away money or emotional healing, therapy, whatever, for free, and made a great big list of that.
And that's also on your website.
That's on the website under financial assistance. And that's very, very important. The sad part is that demand is bigger than the pot. So sometimes they close, but I always say to people, call them anyway, because they don't know when you're going to get a whole bunch of new money, and it's your,
exactly.
your moment.
Yes.
You just have to make the phone calls, and we're not over that yet, so everybody needs money here. And so that's been good. Then it's been a lot of tips for how people deal with hospitals and whatever to really figure out how to get more money out of the system to really take care of their financial needs. So financial stuff is a big stress on people. It's just huge. And I don't think, I certainly experience with my own. I'm seeing that light again now.
Yeah. No problem. In fact, we are getting at the end of this wonderful conversation. I wish I could continue for hours. So I want to make sure I capture your final words of wisdom.
And also wisdom?
Your words of pearls of wisdom, but also, I want you to share your website information or whatever you want to share, so people know where they can get all this very precious information.
Yeah, and connect if you need help.
Yes.
Nancy's List is my love letter to the universe. It's my big thank you note for my recovery and my life. It's been a big deal. And I guess what I would love to say to this audience is, if open your heart. It's not, we want to close down. When we're scared, we close down. You can open your heart if you can, embrace the comfort and the support of people that love you, and the medical profession or the alternative and complementary therapist, whoever you're willing, let them in and feel the gratitude in your heart. And cancer can be transforming. Cancer can be a really existential experience. It can really, you'll find out things about yourself you never knew, and you'll be really, really a fuller person for going through it with your heart wide open. And I'm blessed with having this experience with you, and grateful for the beautiful people who come my way through this cancer path. So I feel very, very grateful.
And I feel very grateful that we could have this conversation. So it's Nancy's List?
Nancy'sList.org, Nancy'sList, no apostrophe, .org. My email is nancy@nancy'slist.org.
And you have a newsletter? What?
Send that out. So if you go onto the website, you can just click something or other, and it'll send you, and then I'll confirm you onto that and send out information. This time was about gratitude and hope, which we all need right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Nancy. This was the podcast, Make Your Brain Happy, and you've made me happy today. You've given me hope, as you said, and optimism. And it's inspiring to see a cancer survivor, not just thriving, but also giving back, appreciating the fact that, I always feel like I was gifted with this chance to continue my life, and I have to do something with it. So yes. Thank you so much, Nancy, and have a wonderful 2021. Thank you.
Yes, and you too. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Make Your Brain Happy podcast. This episode was recorded by Veronique Cardone and produced by HG Media. If you enjoy our podcast, please share it with your friends. You can find our podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever you listen to podcasts.